That's the sound. That's the sound of landing. A double twirl over and a spin backwards, double almost somersault in the air. Times a rodeo flip and misty flip at the same time, and combine with a landing that is in the air, and it is all done within the air, and it is continued in the air, and it is stuck. The landing is stuck in the air, and it continues to be a flight maneuver in the air, because you're floating in the air, playing the global giving games, which is in the air, because you're floating above ground when you're playing the games to give philanthropy energy to the world. But what that's a reference to is, welcome to the news by the way, is action sports, in the recontextualized fashion of this podcast. Welcome again to the news. So, what I mean is that one of the most significant industries in the world is not exactly the way that it sounds, but it's the commit to action market. I've been drawing a couple parallels to this market the last couple of days. It's also known as the unfulfilled potential market. It's also known as the edutainment market. It's also known as the entrepreneurship market, where people are becoming business music, actors and actresses and musicians, basically, though, because they're actors and actresses in their own personal brands, but they're also music makers from the music that's emanating from their hearts. So they are music makers and actors because they're filming their personal brand, and that in essence is the business music film industry, at the same time as the edutainment industry is at the same time the commit to action industry, because action is the corresponding item and the element and the capital and the energy that is in essence spawning the future of the world. Spawning the future of the world is the action base and the cause of varying actions that are continuing to add value to the global economy, to continuous globalization and global energy through action, and that's the commit to action market, and that therefore relays and relates to the action sports industry that I'm referencing in this podcast. Action sports in this podcast is relevant and related to making sports that relate to games and relates to playing games around the world, to just like a video game, in essence like playing a Mario video game, that has to do with connection from the internet to playing physical games, where we are ultimately leveraging the external aspects of the sky, of the air, as somewhat of a new playing ground, of a new playing field, to be able to connect, be with people, as well as AR and augmented reality glasses, to be able to play video games around the world, to be able to connect with philanthropy energy and giving energy around the world. And these are action sports. In this podcast, these are action sports, but in the traditional sense of action sports, it has to do with like skateboarding and snowboarding and surfing and things of this nature. So we're actually combining all of those things at the same time and putting those into the air. And we're also combining that with Harry Potter and that game Quidditch, where he plays the game Quidditch in the air on broomsticks. And so it adds a bit of witchcraftery to the nature of the whole podcast mentality, and also action sports, where witchcraftery makes a dose of using nature and leveraging nature and the elements of nature to be able to make global philanthropy, to be able to connect all human beings to a better world in the future, because all human beings have the agency within themselves, where they're all agents and are able to leverage that agency through the nature of accountability, and that market being aligned in parallel to, in essence, the edutainment industry. The edutainment industry is parallel to the entertainment industry, but in the edutainment industry, being an accountability coach is similar to being an agent for an actor in the entertainment industry. So being an accountability coach in the edutainment industry has to do with, in essence, aligning with people that you know, or making your own clientele, making your own freelance clientele, starting your own side business, which has to do with any entrepreneur being able to any person being able to become an entrepreneur by acknowledging the ability to develop a clientele of through becoming an accountability coach, which is like being a music manager in the entertainment industry, because all people have business music emanating from their heart, which has to do with something that they would want to do with their time. If they had unlimited resources and unlimited money to do things with their time, they would make a business that contributed more so than before to the world. And that's entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship has to do with solving problems around the world, and that develops and generates philanthropy energy around the whole world. So therefore, by developing people into accountability coaches, they also become accountability coaches. They also become accountable to themselves and become accountability coaches to themselves as well. But they also get an accountability coach to begin with to help them to become more accountable to their own accountability coaching process in the future, to be able to leverage them becoming like an agent, going from an agent to be having their own agency, in essence, to develop the most philanthropy energy in the world, in essence, just like I need an accountability coach myself, so we can continue to try to make ongoing music and business music around the whole world. I, DINKY and Shades for Game Studios, in other words, as a company, needs an accountability coach as well at the current time, and we're looking to fill a slot on LinkedIn and have been posting out there to try to look for an accountability coach, aka a manager, a business music manager, or a music manager to be able to manage the business music within DINKY and Shades for Game Studios in of itself, to be able to try to continue this process of continuing on the path to add more value to and more business music to the global philanthropy energy spectrum and the global philanthropy energy grid around the whole world, to continue to connect these dots, and make continuous action sports in the context that I mentioned before, so that everybody in the world is able to commit to action in this entrepreneurship fashion, where we're making the world into continuous sports that also is able to leverage new technology, to be able to leverage new vehicles, to develop internal human vehicles out of the human bodies, to be able to play sports, to then be able to bring down borders, to be able to play sports, so that everybody can include everybody else, 8 billion people, and develop generative currency for all 8 billion people, extreme basic income for all people in the world, to be able to generate this kind of energy from, in essence, philanthropy energy for all humans, to be able to benefit from this type of collective energy that is developed from all human beings. And it's also relevant to like AI energy, and the energy that AI is producing as it's unfolding, and it's unfolding itself as energy, and it's continuing to add value to the global spectrum of humans. It's like philanthropy energy. That's like philanthropy energy. And it's like tokenization is able to spread to all human beings by tokenization through philanthropy energy. Philanthropy energy is the new form of like money, basically, in the blockchain, or in the global economy, because it has to do with all humanity and the best interest of humanity, in essence, so it corresponds directly to money in that fashion. And it's like the tokenization of the future based on what is the best interest for everybody, every human being, all 8 billion people, as opposed to yesterday, where it's just not that way, and it's just like a more so narrow and unequitable system, unequitable, and that's money. That's yesterday's money. That's yesterday's monetary energy. But in a process for an actionable item, to be able to change this today's podcast into an actionable item, which is something that we've started doing on like outside and talking to people in NYC and on this sort of outside, as people are passing by, walking around, we speak to them in the outdoors, to be able to try to connect with the idea of developing transpositional thinking, leveraging the future, times in the future, to be able to cash in on that in today, in essence, and also leveraging the essence and the nature of accountability coaching, and what the purpose of accountability coaching is at the heart and the core, and how that calls upon energy exchanges at the same time, and how that calls upon the commit to action industry, which is basically the only rivaling industry in the world that rivals the commit to action industry, is the money industry. That's all that we really have in terms of energy in this world. Realistically, in terms of the business world, we have commit to action in energy, and we have money energy. Those are the only two energies in the world of business, in essence. So in the commit to action industry, as opposed to money, we are trying to evaluate that, repurpose that, leverage that industry to be able to repurpose the committing to action energy into actions that benefit the global philanthropy energy grid, to best have that mentality be able to be first brought out and prioritized in all people's thinking, so it's at least highlighted and idolized to begin with, that type of thinking, that alter ego, is idolized to be able to bring about that external self, that additional self that lives inside the heart, that heart frequency, that he art. It's like a compound word. He standing for humans, which is just an overall word for humanity, and a human, basically. It is, and then art next to that, because that's the art that's radiating from the human heart, which has to do with frequency that's ongoing and beating from that space and place. So therefore, when we're trying to chase that art that's beating from the heart, that business music, in essence, a way to try to do that in terms of trying to do accountability coaching on the street is by today leveraging a new format of content. In essence, like I talked about yesterday, leveraging this format of content where, in essence, we're going outside and we're talking to people and we're trying to get them to be able to furnish the inside of their bodies by doing paintings inside of themselves, to be able to make a 3-part story about their past, to be able to then align them with their core root structure of their direction, of their core soul purpose, interest. If they had unlimited resources to develop their own soul business, what that would be aligned with, and then to develop with DINKY Tech in a live form, to then develop a collaborative accountability energy, and then develop another 3-piece wireframe for a roadmap stemming from that going forward into the future, to then therefore have some kind of accountability going into the future, to leverage future actions and such things, and try to develop commit to action actions for the future to actually start to influence the global philanthropy energy grid in terms of humanity and other humans that are existing in the world, to try to repurpose existing human energy into philanthropy energy, so that it aligns with also their core soul of entrepreneurship at the same time, and they can expand on their alter ego and give highlight, shed light, giving light, more expansive, brighter, expressive light onto their alter egos, onto their entrepreneurship selves. That is the heart music, the business music that emanates from their heart, in essence, to exemplify and highlight and shed light upon that more so than before. And so, in essence, today, what we added on to that process by developing a couple interactions today, in essence, is the idea, or not the idea, but the instance of adding music to that process. So we had a two-part additions today to the process of new content going forward, which is one is adding the essence of future selling and pre-selling. In essence, pre-selling through the use of adding incentivization through action taking, through dual action taking, through actually buying something, like I'm selling them themselves and they're buying themselves from me and from the currency which they convey to me, and they transmit to me through buying themselves through me, because I'm a mirror in essence, and I reflect them to them through me, through the conversation, through the interest, to develop that alignment with that soul's unlimited money business that they would develop if they had unlimited resources at that current second moment, which is the purpose of the journalism, of the documentation of this type of content as we go forward and make a second source of content in addition to this podcast, in essence. That in essence, once that is called upon, once that mirror is there shed, then they're buying themselves from me. So it's like a dual interesting, like foreshadowing transaction that happens in a forward selling manner. It's a pre-selling manner. So they're buying themselves from me, and what they're buying it for is a low price. In essence, it's a low price because the stock price is low when they're first starting out. The stock price is very low, basically like similar to a cryptocurrency when it's first starting out. In essence, there's one that I've been following as well and somewhat talked to people about. So it's kind of like a reference also, because it's like it's base level also at the same time, and like in the spiritual finance sense, in essence, a person's heart business, their business music business that's emanating from their heart, it starts out at a low stock price. So in essence, what they did is they bought some of themselves from me, from looking in the mirror through me, in essence, shining the mirror to them in public, in a public meeting with them, in essence, from just that interaction, that outdoor interaction, that reflection from me to them caused them to buy themselves from me, and that money that they were going to pay me for the, in essence, semi-gratitude for that conceptual reflection into themselves from me, which is along the lines of close to about $10, US $10, along those lines, that's an approximation in essence. So it's in essence developed that equation. We developed a stock price for them, their heart business, their heart music, their art, their business music, their business sound, their heart sound, their business music sound from that is emanating from their heart. In essence, we developed a quantified price from that, and that developed quantified reflection price from my sort of attempt at a calculation from them equated to approximately $10. And so they gave that $10 to me metaphorically, and as a result, we semi deflected and reflected that back into them, and I, in essence, offered to, in essence, give that back to them with only asking, give 100% back, basically, and to invest 100% back into them, 100%, but at the same time, with a twinge and a tweak and an actual ask with a request on the back end of that equation, in essence, that entailed a 10% gratuity, in an ironic sense, and a 10% gratuity for me paying them for their action to force them into the action, in essence, so that they take that $10, approximate $10, and they take it and they invest it into their seed. They take that monetary energy and they're obligated. This was an experiment today. That was a physical transaction of forward selling energy. This is forward selling, in essence, in quotes, type of a deal today that occurred in the experiment phase for transacting, for trying to develop accountability coaching energy to develop into this commit to action industry, a process for connecting with this industry, in essence. And there's other marketing agencies apparently that do forward selling as well, and they give value on the front end, and they'll show business, they'll get business on the front end for someone before they ask for business in return. And we want to try to follow up with a couple of those marketing agencies as well. On a side note, in essence, to try to develop a little bit more business for businesses that are trying to be sold, to be able to try to develop some sales for those businesses, as well as connect real estate for sale off of those businesses to help with our main bottom essence business of following through with DINKY Tech and Change for Game Studios growth. Getting back off the tangent and going back, focus on a prospective client attempt today, conceptual development of new content, and at the same time, the development of this interaction today when we're talking about forward selling. We added not only music making, live music making, and YouTube living from into future content, because that's sort of an intention, is to have a speaker and make new music and such things while at the same time doing interviews, because there's a external microphone that can stream at the same time as having it through the speaker, and so the reverb can go back into the microphone to layer the sound, I guess you could say. But at the same time, we're trying to forward sell people on their own businesses by having them pay for themselves at first, in essence, and then developing a perpetual spiral to then also obligate them to give a 10% return on the investment. Basically, that was an investment by me because they paid me the $10 for their future price and just gave me some credit for their future business, in essence, in approximate form, in a credit form of about $10 US dollars, in essence. So that's that monetary energy expression of $10 in monetary US energy. And then in essence, I gave it back to them. I gave 100% of it back to them, except I obligated them, which is not to say that I asked for the money, but I sort of necessitated in the transaction, because I have no way to force this through a contract. So I made a suggested donation, in essence, a suggested donation of a 10% return donation on that $10, approximate $10. It's a little bit less than $10, so it's more like 90 something cents. That's my return on the back end, which is an obligation to, in essence, hopefully receive in a digital wallet format. And that is to cause the action to occur so that they do not feel like they are just alone, so that therefore they're actually getting the first session of accountability coaching in the first session, when that first moment is happening, in that first transactional encounter of energy exchange and transaction between myself and this other person, so that in essence they are forward selling this energy through me into themselves, and we make this peculiar conceptual collaborative perpetual engine between the two of us and our two energies that's kickstarting their own thought, food for thought in terms of business, by obligating them to future sell me or current sell me at the current price their 10% of the value of their business, in essence, and not their business, but a stock price related to their business, to then allow me 10% of the price at that current day to reinvest that back into them, because I'm asking for it in the form of the currency of the original energy that I'm actually buying, which they are being invested into 90% of the currency that is their energy. Their energy is the currency that's being invested into. That's what I was buying into. That's what I was giving 100% of the energy back into, is to grow that business. But the obligation on their side is the 10% to be able to act for me. It's because I invested in them, but they have to be held accountable based upon money, and that accountability, sometimes people will not act unless they pay money. That's not just a sales saying, that's a real thing, because there's a sense of accountability built into that essence of doing stuff, because sometimes if people pay money for things, they will actually act. If they don't pay money and they get things for free, they don't actually act. That's a real thing. It's not only a sales tact, it's a real thing. If people put down money, they will actually act. You have to be able to do research, but that is a actually significant sales tool and sales concept in the meantime as well. If you're getting people to pay money for things, it's actually an accountability act in of itself. In a peculiar sense, they are buying action in of themselves, and that is something which is just a little bit of a side discussion, so we're not going to quite necessarily go there right yet, but I'm trying to buy the original currency of that energy of this new person and their new business from the accountability coaching process. So it is like a collective, cumulative process and insight into this new world conceptualization of the edutainment business music manager position through the alternative title of an accountability coach, in essence, through this forward selling, pre-selling, transactional energy exchange, forward selling mindset, in essence, that's transactional, that's semi-invented today by trying to develop future business energy from them and making pre-seed energy by developing action which would not have occurred otherwise without me. So therefore it's like earning at the same time the conceptual stock shares within this given business, within this given person, within this given accountability coach energy that is drawing upon this person's energy, this external person's energy that was just met. There was a recent introduction, so that this person's energy now can manifest and format itself and repurpose itself into an actual business in the future, as opposed to not doing that, as opposed to the opportunity cost of it not happening at all, based upon me not necessarily being able to draw upon that from them and in them necessarily to grow that into the future. So that 10% is an obligation for them to also to actually stay online and to actually grow that. They're paying with action. They're paying with action to buy from themselves, buy from me to me, and then me invest back into them, actually give the money back, which is an investment that I'm giving them 90% of the stock shares. So that's, to be straight and clear, is I'm buying 100%, but in theory, of the stock shares, because they didn't exist to begin with, and then therefore it's actually an investment, and then therefore transferring 90% to them, and then I still owe 10%, but their obligation is to then send back 10%. So it's just a peculiar pre-selling methodology, mindset, mentality, transposition, conceptual mindset, element, practice, in essence, for the day, for today, for practicing the content for the future, for whatever else is to come, because we're going to be trying to make music while at the same time having these conversations that are live when we're trying to spin this, in essence, stream it live, in essence, on YouTube while doing this content in the future, to hopefully also develop cross-promotion with them, in essence. But it's also edutainment, so it's like mostly, so it's theoretically, truth, not truth. There's action, there's inaction. Sometimes people will follow through, sometimes people won't follow through, but it's about experimentation. It's about calling into the nether worlds, the nether regions of things that don't exist yet. In the meantime, we're trying to draw upon those potentials and those conceptual potentials that don't exist in the nether worlds, to try to develop them and call upon them to then exist, so that they can hopefully start to exist within, deflecting and reflecting into new people, 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 on a more consistent basis, to in essence evolve this business, DINKY Tech and Change for Game Studios, and the energy within it, to externally, hopefully, develop positive influence in the whole world and develop more philanthropy energy into the whole world as soon as possible through DINKY Tech and Change for Game Studios. And we want to try to do more DJing, more DJ learning. We're actually trying to do that live. As I mentioned during the content, we're kind of DJing through the phone. In essence, we're DJing custom sound at the same time as the interviews. More or less, if they can happen that way, hopefully in a functional sense, as we continue to try to make this stuff, and hopefully all of it combined, the mush pot of all this crazy content, which I don't even know how it's meant to roll out necessarily, or if it will necessarily at all, until it's actually, there's any more of it that's done and actually ends up printed on or published on YouTube. That we'll have to see how it mushes together, and hopefully that's business music in of itself, and all this process of trying to retriangulate and make new propellers for this engine to be able to repurpose itself through human deflecting and reflecting energy with each other, and collaborative human energy reflecting and repurposing itself with each other is all a matter of the mixing and the melting and the experimenting and the engineering, I guess you could say, of the elements of energy that we're trying to cross over and cross-hatch and repurpose and deflect and reflect upon each other to continue to make human energy experiments to try to continue to enhance and optimize philanthropy energy, global philanthropy energy for all humans to be able to benefit from this energy on an ongoing basis by forward selling and making action sports, committing to action sports around the whole world, commit to action sports, so that there's ongoing residuals and continuous expanding perpetual energies unfolding in differing directions, and we have help and assistance with the mathematicians and the mathematics of existing evolving processes of logic that are able to assist our lacks of understanding in certain realms and respects as well, to hopefully be able to optimize this process going forward and optimize the future and optimize DINKY Tech and Change for Game Studios and the music, and hopefully the distribution process to also be able to call upon all people in the world to try to enhance animal shelters as well, to be able to clear animal shelters, to be able to adopt pets and be able to also foster pets at large, at scale, in a macro sense, to adopt or foster pets and shelter pets at a macro scale adopting or fostering shelter pets, at least helping to foster shelter pets across the world in every city of the world, and putting flyers on every single windshield of every car every day around the world, in every city, in every country around the world, to be able to foster or adopt shelter pets, to clear the shelters, and continuing to campaign and add that message onto every single piece of content that DINKY Tech and Change for Game Studios makes going forward, to try to continue to enhance also the clear the shelters item, the clear the shelters aspect, to try to give all these animals the best chance of having the best lives possible, as well as everybody human as well. So yeah, hopefully that's all in the cards and all viable and such things forward going and such. Yeah. Anyways, thanks again for now. Bye, DINKY. DINKY Tech. Bye. Peace. Bye. Thanks. Bye.